This time, as the title says, we're going to talk about the value of design for business. In detail, Tabo, who is our product designer, is going to discuss about his UX methodology and some challenges he faced while building our flagship solution called the Cloud Config. And Anthony will follow. Anthony is software engineer at Merpay, and he will discuss about his perspective on mobile development and recent trends in the space. So each session is going to be around 20 minutes, and after each session we're going to have around 10 to 15 minutes Q&A, depends on the time. And after that, around 8:45, we're going to have a social gathering here. So let's pretend it's Friday already and just enjoy a little bit. And if you're not able to cover all the questions you might have during the Q&A, just feel free to ask us anything you want during the social gathering. Before starting though with the two main topics, I would like to provide you with a really brief introduction about ourselves and what we do. Someone asked me already, right? So, FIXER was established in 2009 by our CEO and President Seiichi Matsuoka. And our main focus right now is providing our customers with the technology consulting and managed service optimized for the public cloud. And managed service here is what I was talking about before, our flagship solution, which is called the Cloud Config. And with implementation, operation, and 24/7 monitoring and maintenance of the cloud platform of Microsoft Azure. We have a different variety of clients, size-wise, industry-wise, and some global major companies such as Toyota and Panasonic. And we recently opened the door with the financial institutions. And if you think about that, it's a really tough and defensive area when we talk about the cloud. I just want to spend a couple of words about that, because it's really one of our main projects at this stage. So this project is called the Lift and Shift, and what we are doing right now is shifting all the local banks in Japan on-premise infrastructure on the cloud platform Microsoft Azure. Yeah, I already said Microsoft Azure 20 times right now. So when we talk about Azure, we are definitely expert in this field. We know the technology inside out, and we've been dealing with it since its birth. They're not just words, so let me show you some proof about our expertise in this area. In 2 years in a row, we have been awarded as a top cloud service vendor by Microsoft Japan. Last year, Country Partner of the Year by Microsoft US. And this year, a couple of months ago, we received the Financial Service Award by Microsoft Japan. This is the lift and shift, what I was talking before. And here, let's talk about Cloud Config Portal. So, as I said before, Cloud Config is our flagship solution. And while we're investigating the market and talking with our customers and potential customers as well, we registered a massive interest in a full visibility on what's going on in the cloud. And if you think about that makes sense. If you know, like having granular metrics of what's going on in your cloud consumption will make you focus 100% of your business efficiency. And this is what we had in mind, building this Cloud Config Portal, which is a standalone SaaS solution for different kind of customer as well as different user types. But I'm not going to go too deep about that because Tabo will follow and will discuss about that in more detail shortly. So what I want to do now is showing to you a video we made about our Cloud Config Portal. So if you have popcorn, this is the right time.
Digital transformation has now become critical for enterprises. The success of these digital transformations is now tied directly to cloud migration. If you are one of the key players in your field, or you want to become one, the migration to the cloud is no longer optional. Once you have migrated, having a clear picture of your cloud spend and usage is critical for business profitability. The ability to control costs, optimize resources, and improve security are essential. And as your usage of cloud grows, increased management and billing analysis becomes incredibly complex. At At FIXER, we believe that governing and growing your cloud productivity doesn't have to be difficult. Our Cloud Config portal will help you simplify the complexities of the cloud. Cloud Config portal is the all-in-one solution for your business that you can fully trust. Whether you are a business professional, an IT expert, or an engineer, this portal is for you. Stop wondering how to tailor your cloud adoption strategy to your specific needs. Cloud Config portal is the first centralized cloud management platform for CSPs, end users, EAs, and MSPs. CSPs can quickly and accurately bill their customers and see real-time costs. EA accounts can use this portal to manage their cloud costs in real time, structured the way your company needs. They can also reduce costs and seamlessly generate reports. End users can have detailed information on resource health, manage their costs, and monitor their Azure subscriptions effortlessly. MSPs can monitor resources and immediately identify issues in their client's activity and begin troubleshooting. We are ready to lead your digital transformation journey. So what are you waiting for? Check out our website at fixer.co.jp and get in touch with us to find out how to start improving your cloud experience.
So at the end the video was longer than my presentation. So this is all from my side. So I will give the floor to Tabo, who is going to discuss with you about UX process methodology and deliverables for B2B. Thank you.
So hi everyone. First off, thank you for coming, and hoping to have a lovely, interesting discussion about all this UX stuff, design stuff, product design. We'll be discussing process methodology and deliverables for B2B. I should probably introduce myself first. So I'm 28. I don't know why that matters, but age seems to be a thing here in Japan anyway. But anyway, I'm from South Africa, Cape Town, and I've been working as a designer for about 5 years now. I started my design career in the web space, designing mostly B2C apps and websites. And then I think, sort of made the natural transition into general interface design. And then also developed an interest in, I guess, UX and the entire sort of, world around UX. So I've been hired at FIXER as a product designer. My responsibilities including, those of a UI designer, UX person, and just general talker or creative talker. I'm going to be taking you guys through, some of the challenges that I encountered in designing this aforementioned cloud.config portal thing. This being my first foray into B2B and designing an enterprise application, I thought it would be interesting to kind of just, hash out some of the things that, from a UX perspective, have been challenging. And I guess, lessons in general, really, just in terms of design. I'll be going through 3 main challenges, and then there's possible solutions for them as well. And after that, I'll be taking you through my very own personal process for having designed this product. So let's get right to it. Challenge number 1. So I'm assuming, I guess, like in any product design or development process, of the many questions we're faced with, I think one of the most pertinent ones is, who are we building this for? I guess there is like, what is this thing? What does it do? But I think above all of that, what matters most is, who it's for. And I think in the B2C space, I've experienced, what I've experienced is that it's much easier to, it's much easier to answer this question in the B2C space. Seeing as, access to users, you can just go out there right now and just talk to some people and get like initial feedback on like, what you need to do and whether your idea is in fact, the way people see things. But in the B2B space, it becomes a little bit challenging reaching those people, for several reasons. One of them being that, I guess in this kind of business space, it's mostly business-to-business partnership type of thing, where, your end customers are hidden behind the veil of another sort of larger corporation as a customer. So, kind of getting access to them and speaking to them about their individual goals and motivations becomes a little bit, I suppose, impractical. And even just from a logistics point of view, I'm imagining even just kind of bringing a bunch of people in this company to interview them. Most sort of B2B or enterprise companies won't be too cool with that, I think, especially from a finance and logistics perspective. So, yeah, but more importantly, what's the solution for this kind of challenge? I don't want to go on too long about it. So yeah, one of the obvious solutions is to use remote user research. So remote user research or remote user testing, services, many of them online. There's a list. I think we'll show the list afterwards. Do you have those? Okay. Anyway, we can talk about them afterwards. My own personal experience has been with usertesting.org, and what these services will do is just kind of collect a sample group of users based on, I guess, a demographic that you outline, and also objectives on sort of the type of data you're trying to get initially on validating your idea. And they'll kind of send you video feedback of like these sort of thoughts from these users, like what sort of issues they go through while interacting with your assuming prototype in the beginning. So yeah, these are very useful in getting that kind of initial phase started in validating your idea, and just making sure that you're on the right path before you get started designing. The next sort of, I guess, more useful solution are conferences. Now, in the B2B space, the nice thing is, these companies usually have like loads of conferences throughout the year where, they're meeting other industry professionals and even competitors, in fact. So I think conferences, at least in our experience, is like one of the best places to get like your initial, user research, or even just like a playground for you to test out whatever idea or prototype you might have. And you'll be speaking mostly to competitors, but you'll also be speaking possibly to end users who work for these organizations. So I think conferences are definitely one of the best playgrounds as a designer to do some research. And then lastly, internal staff. So obviously, like, I guess in this company, for example, there are people who are, in fact, who represents the customers we're targeting, like MSP, CSP, etc., as they mentioned before. They happen to work in the organization because that's what this business does. So oftentimes I feel like, at least in enterprise or B2B businesses, you'll have people who are using such tools, like the product that you'll be making, to do their day-to-day job. So studying like their workflow, or even just kind of the tools they use, and all the bits and pieces that go into it, I think is a nice way to, get an understanding on how these products work and how they fit into like that person's like day to day. So yeah, I mean, just talking to just developers here, or even stakeholders as well, I think is a great way to get like some initial validation on your idea, or even a possible design. There is one thing I wanted to mention. So the thing with the internal staff thing, talking to developers, etc., I reckon one of the best ways to do this is using paper prototypes, or paper or sketches, really. This is great because you can iterate quickly through ideas, and I've even done this myself. Before even having touched like Sketch or Figma or whatever, I just got my sketchbook out, and like I had a bunch of sketches down, and even just ideas, even like random diagrams, talking to all these people and just making sure that the way I see things, especially from someone who doesn't have experience in this field, that the way I see things is in fact the way it is. I think paper is a great way to kind of quickly iterate through this without wasting time on details. Us designers, we have this thing where, like, if you're sitting in front of your computer, you might kind of want to focus on pixel alignment and like fonts and even colors at that point. Really irrelevant at this point. I think it's just about validating ideas and just making sure that you're on the right path. Anyway, let's move on to second challenge. I'm going to breathe for a second. Anyway, okay. Second challenge, which UX methodology or process to go with, of the many out there. Now, we all know, we've heard all the buzzwords, design thinking, lean UX, etc. We all know what to do. It's just, I guess, the choice to make really is like which method fits which situation, you know. So I think, yeah, like, let me just press this quickly. So definitely one of the guiding principles to choosing a methodology is thinking about like your business's priorities. So, you know, for one, looking at whether they have the resources to conduct a full-on UX process, like to, you know, they recruit users for user testing, whether they have a budget for that, if in fact there are any other designers in the organization or not, all that sort of stuff. And like, from a priority point of view, whether, you know, their primary concern is to get like version 1 of the product out there as quick as possible into the market. So in that situation, I'm assuming you'd have like a really short sort of time scale to work with quick iteration and quick turnaround. So in that case, definitely looking at things like, you know, design thinking and even lean UX, I think, you know, is the best way to go. But obviously none of these things are written in stone, so, you know, it's just a matter of like, you know, what works best for you in that particular situation, I think. So in my process as well, I even skipped some steps. Like, I didn't conduct the entire thing from wireframes and all that sort of stuff. I just picked the parts that helped me get to where I needed to get to before, like, kind of hitting the design, hitting my computer to start designing. The second solution to choosing or picking a methodology, an obvious one, I guess, communication, collaboration. This, I think, just applies in general to the product design and development process. Reason being, you know, talking to your immediate team members, like even developers and product managers, stakeholders, you know, and just kind of getting them involved in the process in the beginning is a great way to get like buy-in from people and get them to trust like what you're doing, you know. Like usually, and especially in B2B businesses, you'll find that like stakeholders, especially like the guys in the suits, they won't like understand what all of this stuff is all about, like all this paperwork, all this like mumbo jumbo about users and stuff. Like convincing them is usually a challenge. So what I mean by communication and collaboration is that like getting them involved in the beginning of the process and even asking them for their input on your process, I think is a great way to get them, to make them feel like they're part of the evolution of the product. And by the time it gets to a design phase, they'll know where everything comes from. You know, they'll understand why you were thinking of certain things in a certain way. Breathe. Next one. Am I still on time? Okay, cool. Next one. Challenge number 3. Target customers. Getting to know who they are in the B2B space. Yeah, like I mentioned before, very tough to see behind this sort of business-to-business partnership thing, and who the actual people sitting at the computers making this customer's business run, and what they do on a daily basis, what their fears, motivations are, etc. Very, very difficult to find out. So, you know, I would say taking the time in the beginning to just at least sort of change your mindset from product, or rather business to consumer, sort of providing a service, to more like a, you know, two businesses in partnership, and how your product sort of fits in making this partnership continue and thrive. And then I think understanding how this partnership model works will kind of give you a nice sort of, I guess, peek into, you know, what those users in that organization should be doing to make sure that this organization continues to, I guess, be successful and make money, and therefore continue the partnership. So, you know, I guess, yeah, it's a matter of, again, speaking to the industry experts or your stakeholders, the very people asking you to build this product, and understanding how the entire business cycle works, where they make their money from in this sort of, I guess, business relationship. So I just discussed that, sorry. Next one. Yeah, I like this one. Scalable solutions. How to build a scalable product. You know, another word we always hear about in the product development cycle, or process in general, that, you know, whatever we build should always be scalable. I think it's also popular in the development community. I think scalability as a whole, especially when it comes to enterprise or SaaS-based solutions, is one of the prerequisites before you even start. And I like to think of it more like as a mindset rather than a methodology, really. So as a designer, thinking right from the beginning that your product should be something of a, you know, constantly growing organism, something that's constantly changing and is composed of a sum of parts which can be switched out for others anytime. I think this is a nice sort of a good mindset to adopt to make sure that you don't design yourself into a corner. Obviously, we love making, carefully baked products that are sort of tightly knit and, not nicely wrapped in a gift box. But, in this particular case, enterprise, I think that doesn't necessarily apply. And, the gift box, as it were, would always constantly have to be ripped open and sort of changed and, modified again, etc. So just adopting that mindset of scalability helps make sure that you don't kind of, put yourself in a corner, in a sense, as I mentioned. So I think that concludes the challenges, yeah. I'm going to now talk about my own personal process for designing this product, the sort of steps I went through before even hitting my computer screen, like I said. So my main sort of motivation for even creating these documents, like why spend all this time making like the diagram you're about to see? Why not just go like, from the sketches straight to, a sketch or Figma or whatever? My main motivation for this was, I wanted to get the usability and the UX really right, and I felt like because here the stakes are a little bit higher than in sort of just making a quick sort of rough prototype of a B2C app that you can bring back and iterate on, etc. Over here in this business, in B2B, I guess, the stakes are much higher because once that thing is out there and people have seen it, you have sort of more ground to cover in terms of just changing it and making sure that it can compete as well. So getting the UX right is definitely one of the main motivations, and also just thinking about like the people that I mentioned before behind this organization who make the business run, who come in on a day-to-day basis, have to do some work, have to use some shitty software, excuse my language, have to use some shitty software to get documents done or whatever, Not necessarily something they may even enjoy doing, but they have to do it, right? So, just kind of getting there and understanding this process that they have to go through and empathizing really with them and trying to build a product that instead of feeling like just another like sort of dots in their process of getting work done, becomes more like, a tool that empowers them, something that makes them feel like they're really good at their job, I felt like if we really get this right, this thing might even be, something someone uses on a daily basis and, gets a promotion just because, like, wow, like this thing just does everything they need to do. And from the stakeholders' perspective, it's not the product that's doing the job, it's the person. So, this person gets a promotion and they also feel as though they're, good at their job and they're smart, and you get things like career growth from that. So, there's all sorts of like cherry on top things going on after that. So, yeah, let me get right to it. The first step of my process was, as I mentioned before, several questions when you're building a product from the first time. One of them being who the users are. But another question that's also important is what problem the product solves. Just thinking in like overall, why does this thing even exist? So especially myself coming in here in this company, having known nothing about like the cloud space or even what sort of products already exist in it, after conducting some initial research and kind of getting an general idea of what these portals or cloud management solutions things do, I still didn't truly understand what the overall underlying problem is that these products are trying to solve. So I think this step, the problem solution analysis, for any product really, whether it's B2C or B2B, is definitely a necessary step in just kind of stopping everything you're doing and then getting your team together, stakeholders, everyone involved, and then just first thinking about what the problem is, and then once it's defined, actually writing it down. I feel like writing it down gives you like this like tangible sort of idea on what the problem is, this tangible feel on the problem. And you get into things like keywords within the problem statement. You'll see over there in this document I've highlighted some keywords in both the problem and the proposed solution. And these keywords are a way to kind of guide you towards picking out like your first user types. A good example I'll give you is in this cloud, whatever management solution thing, one of the main sort of key or needs rather that we found in our problem solution analysis was that we have two main user types: people who would be interested in, like billing information, finance people, who'd be wanting to get onto this portal and monitor like how much the business is spending on the cloud. And then you have the other guy who's, let's say, a developer who works with this business person and whose job really is to just monitor that, things don't go out of control from a technical perspective, and that, nothing's broken or that things aren't using more than they need to do in the cloud thing. So you have these two types of users who probably work even in different departments and have completely different motivations. But, whatever this product becomes in the end needs to serve both their needs. So that's what the problem solution analysis helps you define. It first outlines who these people are, or what they look like, at least from a very high level perspective, and then kind of gives you a brief overview into what their initial goals would be. This would obviously need to be broken down even further. I mean, after many other discussions, you'll probably kind of get it to a granular point where you truly understand what the sort of fundamental goals of these users are. So that's what you see over here. Underneath each user type is just a list of our understanding of what their goals are. Mind you, at this point, we haven't spoken to any real outside users. All we've done is just spoken to like internal staff, stakeholders, and that's it, and done some like online research as well. So the next logical step from defining your problem solution analysis and understanding the problem and then proposing a solution, I feel like taking a solution and just kind of, again, with your team and everyone involved, breaking it down into what I call a product flow. Similar to what a user flow or a user journey would be, but this one is kind of the steps that the product takes in helping the user get to where they need to get to. So obviously in a user journey you would get like different user types with different motivations, taking different paths through the product to get to a certain point. However, this one is just one path that the product takes based on your solution that can help the user get to where they need to get to. And it's again about writing it down, recording it, and then having it in Word format so that, when you trace back these documents, you can almost like, it's like a breadcrumb trail of like how the product provides value to the user. You can trace it back and read like, oh, it does this first, and it does this, and it does this, and then the user's done what they need to do. So this is an example of a product flow for an end user. The next process after a product flow is what I've mentioned before, to obviously now start thinking about the actual user. So you've got two aspects. You've got on the one side the flow that the product takes to get to help the user get to where they need to get to, and then on the other hand you've got the user journey or the user flow, which is defined by the user's goals and what they want to do on the product and the steps that they would take, or the various paths that they would take through the product to get to where they need to get to. Typically, we would start with, I guess, like a first-time user, someone who knows nothing about what's on the product, and then it generally leads you into designing an onboarding flow as well, because obviously thinking about someone who hasn't seen anything or doesn't know what's happening on the product, it's only natural that you would want to kind of give them a journey or a flow that sort of teaches them what your product does, and teaches them about the core value that the product can provide them. So this is an example of one of those journeys. And the main thing to kind of remember about this is that it's all based on the initial user types that we kind of defined in the beginning. And based on those sort of user types and their different goals and motivations, we've designed a path that kind of combines all of their journeys into one. And you'll see that there's some points where the path sort of diverts based on their goals. So finance guy would go over there at the top, viewing cost data, and then going into deeper insights discovery, and therefore maybe going even further to generating financial reports and doing whatever finance guys do. And then the other part is if a technical person is interested in getting deeper insights into the machine, the nuts and bolts, into what's happening in the cloud space, they have a different path as well. But the main thing is that none of their paths sort of completely diverge. At some point they coincide, which is really where the product's value is. If your journey somehow has to combine these two or three or whatever users paths into one single point where kind of your product's real core value shines, And for us, it's like this area here where they can create customized workspaces, taking all of this complex data and allowing them to customize it in a way that makes sense for them. And that for us is like the core value of the product, and we make sure that whatever journey we design takes both those users through that sort of core feature, I suppose. So yeah, that's it, I guess. The end of the user journey, or I guess having defined all those user journeys, that was just one, but again, no users here, no user testing done even. I haven't even designed personas, All I've thought about is, okay, so there's different user types, what their goals and motivations are. It's just one journey that I designed. If you like, you can even go as far as imagining what the user looks like and designing personas for it. And, those journeys start to become more complex and much more interesting. So yeah, the output of all of that sort of paperwork, all those documents, is to, or I suppose I should say the objective of all those documents is to get to a point where you're defining core features of your product. So obviously, like in the beginning, we have this thing that we know we wanted to do A, B, and C, but no one has actually outlined core features. You may even have a list of functionality that the thing does, but from a high-level feature perspective, thinking of all those functionalities into neatly understandable components, I think that entire process helps you get to that point where, for instance, over here, we thought about, okay, so we've got several user types with different motivations, and we've got two main sets of data types, financial data and technically inclined data, I suppose. And how do we present this data to both users in a way that's easily digestible, quickly and also efficiently, I suppose, but still provides them with enough insights to actually take action and resolve whatever they need to resolve. So we thought, going with a dashboard is probably the best way to do it, because in that way, we could have it customizable, where a user arrives initially and kind of creates their own space for viewing whatever information they need to view. If they're a technically inclined person, they would have a technical dashboard, and if they're a financial person, etc. So yeah, that's how we came up with a dashboard as a core feature. And then we also thought, if we're providing all of this complex data and giving them overviews and allowing them to go deeper into it, what's the point of giving people insight if you can't, whenever they step away from your product, keep them informed, kind of always make sure that they're on top of the ball in terms of knowing what's happening in their business from a cloud perspective. So that's when we came up with the alerting system. We thought it would be a great idea to kind of have all of this data follow them, essentially, wherever they go, whether it's in a meeting or a conference, etc., that would let them know whenever something changes. So in the case of a finance person, if they have a budget set for the entire organization for cloud spending, and then somehow they overspend, we want an alerting system to let them know so that they can make adjustments whenever they need to make them. And then user management, of course, prerequisite, because we're thinking, obviously this thing is an enterprise product, also provided as a SaaS solution, so you're going to have a situation where you have multiple users using the same product. Even within an organization, you'll have different user roles with different permissions, etc. So user management, we thought, definitely important. No need to explain that any further, I think. And then lastly, just a sort of reporting system. The reports really is just a way to have all of this, digital data or visual data on the portal, to have a way to keep a record of it, a physical record. Especially in companies, that sort of stuff becomes important. Generating invoices, financial reports, system reports, logs, etc. So that's one of the core features we thought we'd include in version 1 of our product. So, okay, enough talking about all the documents. I'm sure you guys are dying to see the design, the output of all of this, all of these diagrams and the paperwork. So, this is version 1 of the product that we released. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's it there, I think, yeah. So yeah, that's everything, the combination of all that work. So yeah. No, I'm kidding guys, I'm kidding. There's actually a real design. This is the actual version 1 of the product. This is the dashboard that I mentioned earlier. And yeah, I guess, yeah, that's everything, I think. This is just going through the dashboard, I guess. Look, that widget over there would be a budget. And all of these are really just customizable, as I mentioned before. So whatever data is interesting to you can be removed or shifted around as you wish. So yeah, I think that's it. This video has no sound, so if I stop talking, you guys are just going to be sitting there, just looking at a silent movie. Yeah.
Might be good to have like some Q&A at this stage.
Some Q&A?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So guys, hit me with all those questions. I'm sure they're there. You know, that guy there.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
You've walked through your methodology in terms of different steps along the way,
Yeah.
from defining the problem to the end user.
Right.
How did you validate between those steps?
That's the thing I forgot to mention. The purpose of creating this this sort of product story thing is almost like a giant hypothesis, really. So obviously, in this, like I mentioned before, you know, the logistics and the resources to conduct proper user research before you start building something, along with the time constraints, of course. You know, stakeholders are on your back, like thinking, when do we see version 1 of the product? We need to release as soon as possible. You know, so you want to get started, you know, as soon as possible with the little bit that you have. So you know, the main thing to think about is when you're creating these documents, a lot of it, of course, is a massive assumption. You know, that's why I'm saying it. You think of it as a giant hypothesis. And it's really just to give you a starting point. The goal is to, once you get to sort of, I guess, version 1 of whatever MVP, I guess, or even a demo version of your product, that you start validating some of these hypotheses. But, you know, the main thing to remember is you don't want to kind of build too much complexity into the product so that, like, if things do have to change, it's not as difficult to kind of go back to the drawing board and kind of redo some of the stuff. But yeah, it's one of the main things that's challenging in building enterprise applications. You know, validating through prototypes, you know, only takes you as far. But eventually, you have to get to a stage where you actually build a functional version of, let's say, a demo or something like that, that you get people to play around with, and you know, then you can get some ideas and sort of validate some of the things you know, predict or assume about these people. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, kind of curious what your definition of MVP is then.
So I guess my definition of MVP would be like to validate some of the hypotheses that we thought about. So it's really just like the core features built in, functional, because again, you want something that, I guess, version 1 that the stakeholders need to see and release, I guess, to the market as soon as possible. But then in this particular case, MVP isn't kind of fully fledged and covers already validated hypotheses. In this case, MVP is, you know, kind of our first introduction to the market, and we kind of want to get feedback and see what we can improve. The nice thing about enterprise applications is that you have obviously longer development cycles and longer design cycles as well. So getting all this feedback and bringing it back in to reiterate and, you know, add features incrementally is not such a difficult thing to do. And there's usually a budget for it as well, so it's the good thing.
You've had a very nice life.
I mean, I can mention other things that are, you know, on the downside, which I probably shouldn't, but yeah.
That's fantastic, thank you.
Cool, man, cool. Anybody else? Do I see a question there? Oh, sorry.
Okay, so I'd like to know your mindset behind all of the switch between doing design for B2B, B2C, and to B2B, because I was working as a visual interface design as well, but now I'm also doing B2B design, because we all know that the B2C design is essentially a human-centered design, where we just observe the user's behavior towards the application that we're using. And if we observe some pain points, we can create some questions and problems, and we can build up a solution. But B2B, because I don't want to call it like a client-centered design, but it really is.
It really is customer-centered.
Because they just want a platform that is usable, so they can make money. And they don't usually ask you to consider all those fancy stuff.
Right.
Maybe that's one of the many reasons why you chose to just go through one path instead of doing actual user testing. those kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So I'd like to know your mindset behind this. Is that how should you make the switch between just do the interface design and right now you're doing the B2B, it's more like a system design. So
yeah, I mean, look, again, you know, as designers, we all know at the end of any product, behind any product, whether it's B2B or B2C or whatever it is, there are end users, there are actual people sitting there playing around with the product. So I think the fundamental sort of goal of what we do doesn't really change, whether you're switching from B2C or B2B. I think the main sort of thing to really remember is that the priorities, I suppose, when it comes to a B2C company or a client and a B2B are completely different. You know, B2C clients or companies, you know, are usually wanting to, they need this customer feedback and validation as early as possible because really it's just kind of getting their product out there into the world, out into the cold with no support, no business or even service behind it. And it's a way to kind of just break into the market for them. Whereas for B2B, you know, they might already be established in fact in the market by the time they release a product. So, you know, their priorities are completely different and much sort of on a larger scale, I guess, than a B2C app would be, or B2B, B2C business would be. And larger scale in the sense that, you know, they would be targeting entire organizations or even an entire industry rather than like a certain sort of niche user group. And so I guess switching your mindset from, like I said before, you know, business or service to people and more like, you know, it's kind of a partnership between several organizations in that industry. Switching that mindset from you know, service to people to partnership, I think is a good way to start. And even when you build your product, you start thinking like, oh, actually, this thing sits between, you know, a bunch of suits that attend a lot of meetings together and want to make money together, make each other rich, you know. So, but in all of that, how do I make sure that it, one, makes this kind of business scheme continue, but also at the same time, you know, serves the needs of these people who are hired by these organizations, you know. So it's kind of a two-pronged thing, I guess, thinking about the people behind it, but also thinking at a larger scale in terms of how you can help the business, these partnerships thrive, I guess. Because obviously without the partnerships, these people don't have a job and therefore your product doesn't do anything for them. So, does that answer your question? I'm sorry.
yes, thanks so much.
Okay, cool.
Also a very quick one.
Yeah.
So I just saw your design, it's amazing by the way.
Cool.
So when you decided to go through this kind of interface, all of the style guidelines,
Yeah.
do you usually choose a design system that already out in the market, or do you build something from zero?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. And I should have mentioned something about this as well, but unfortunately we don't have the time. I wanted to get really into the details of how I actually started pixel pushing on my computer. But yeah, one of my roles here is also to, I guess, maintain or even design an entire system for this product. Since we're starting from scratch, obviously nothing existed before. You know, we have all those documents which serve their purpose in terms of a documentation, a type of documentation for the product's cycle or growth or inception. But further than that, after having designed the product, obviously, as you've mentioned before, you know, you want to kind of have a consistent style guide or even a consistent system of components that are easily maintainable and that you can, if in fact we start having a team and you're not just the only designer in the organization, you know, how you kind of pass this on to other people and get them to be involved and build as well. So yeah, I think one of the primary, I guess, roles that comes with being a designer in a B2B business would be to, you know, introduce them to these methodologies of, you know, when you're designing a product, it's not just a sort of you design once and you're done, you know. It's a growing, living organism, you know, that needs maintenance. And like I said, thinking of it in terms of a sum of parts rather than a neatly packaged, gift-wrapped box, you know. This is the way you start thinking in terms of components as well, and in designing a system of these components that can also evolve. And you know, your developers will thank you for it, definitely, especially in the enterprise space. They have a lot to deal with in terms of system issues, I guess. So making this stuff like this front end and design stuff, which really doesn't matter a lot to them in the B2B space, you know, getting some of that work done for them, they'll thank you for it, I think so.